Welcome to a deep dive into, well, kind of into the nature of reality in this digital world we're living in. You've given us quite the pairing to unpack this time.
It's meta for sure, layered. And it gets at, I think, that push and pull we all feel, that vast digital world at our fingertips, and then that immediate physical world we're actually in.
Yeah, absolutely. And Kindred Soul, he kicks things off with this great contrast right off the bat. He's talking about traveling through galaxies from your couch 1 minute, and then the next you're hearing your neighbor's dog bark.
Right, right. That weird mix of the infinite and the totally mundane.
Exactly.
And what I find so interesting is how he ties that into our perception of time itself. It's like he's saying those digital experiences, they often lack the grounding that our physical reality provides.
It's true. When was the last time you felt like a true sense of awe from something you just saw online? I mean, it's not that it can't happen,
Right,
but it hits differently.
totally.
And that's where I think his analogy of the crickets comes in, which I'll admit threw me for a loop at first.
The crickets are brilliant, actually. He's highlighting how both crickets, little guys and humans, we both rely on communication to connect. Crickets use sound to find their mates.
Right.
We use all these digital tools to find friends, colleagues, you name it, even romantic partners these days. But both are driven by this, deep-seated need.
Yeah.
It's biological, really. It's that imperative to connect.
So are you saying our tweets and posts are basically our digital version of cricket chirps? I never thought of it that way.
Precisely.
Okay, but it kind of makes sense. Both are signals, right? You're sending them out hoping for a response.
Exactly. And this need to connect, to ground ourselves, it ties directly into our circadian rhythms, something Kindred Soul brings up a bit later in their conversation.
Okay, let's unpack that a bit. For those who might need a refresher, what exactly are circadian rhythms and why do they matter so much in this context?
In the simplest terms, think of circadian rhythms as our internal clocks, our biological clocks.
Okay.
They control those sleep-wake cycles we all know about, hormone release, even our body temperature going up and down. They're affected by cues in our environment, mainly light and darkness. And they're crucial because, get this, they anchor us right here, right now, in our bodies, in this physical reality.
So our minds might be off in the digital world, but our bodies are still here, very much a part of, well, the natural world.
Exactly. And Kindred Soul seems to suggest that this disconnect, this constant pull between the digital and the physical, it impacts us deeply.
Hmm.
How we see the world, how we build relationships, even how we lead our lives.
It's like he's saying, no matter how immersive that digital world gets, we can't escape our physical reality. It's always there, ticking along in the background, reminding us where we fit into it all.
And not just our place as, individuals, but our place in the bigger picture,
Mm.
the human story, which is where his whole discussion of love, leadership, and legacy comes in.
And that's where things get really interesting, I think. He starts talking about love as this connecting force, the thread that weaves together human experience.
He's beautiful, really.
And he uses this image, this pearly necklace, to get his point across.
Yeah, that really resonated with me, that metaphor. Each of us, with our own lives or experiences, we're like individual pearls.
Okay.
And it's love that connects us. The thread holding those pearls together. Love for our families, our communities, even love for humanity as a whole.
It's a beautiful image. It really drives home that idea that even though we experience life so uniquely, we're all part of something much, much bigger.
Exactly.
And that the choices we make, our actions, they ripple outwards. They become a part of that bigger human story.
Yes.
Which I think is a perfect segue into what he says about leadership. He seems to be arguing that the leaders we choose, the people we entrust to guide us, they should have this deep understanding of our human story, of the hopes and fears and dreams that we all share.
Yeah. And he uses Kamala Harris and Donald Trump as examples of this, though he's careful to not endorse either one.
Yeah, and it's important for us to reiterate that here, We're not here to take sides or promote any political agenda whatsoever.
Definitely not.
But what's fascinating is how he uses these two very different figures to illustrate his point.
Exactly. He's highlighting how different approaches to leadership, to governing, can shape that journey we're all on together, for better or worse.
So it's not just about choosing a leader who's competent or whatever. If we're following Kindred Soul's logic here, it's deeper than that. It's about choosing leaders who get it, who understand the human condition, recognize our shared humanity, and who are striving to build a world that actually reflects those values.
Exactly. He's urging us to think critically about the future we want, both as individuals and as a society. and to choose the people who will help us get there. Leaders who recognize the power of our shared stories, who understand that tech might change, but what it means to be human at its core, that's constant.
It's a powerful message, and one that I think is so relevant right now, especially in such a divided world.
Oh, I completely agree. It speaks to the power of these types of conversations.
Mm.
Philosophy, dialogue, it helps us make sense of this crazy, complicated world.
And Kindred Soul, he doesn't shy away from complexity. In fact, he dives right in. And that's actually where I think we should pick up in part 2 of our deep dive, because he starts talking about this idea of amazement in action.
Oh, yeah.
And honestly, I can't wait to hear your take on that. Picking up on that idea of leadership, shared narratives, it's wild how Kindred Soul just goes right into amazement in action. Almost like he's saying, if we just recognize those shared stories, boom, that's how you get that awe.
It is an interesting connection.
So for those of us who might need a little help, what is amazement in action? Because I gotta admit, when I first heard it, I didn't really get it.
It's funny how some concepts can be so simple, yet so profound at the same time.
Right.
I think Kindred Soul is getting at this feeling of, I don't know, awe and wonder we get when we connect to something bigger than ourselves. A killer sunset, a masterpiece of art. Could even be a moment of true human connection.
Yeah.
But it's more than just, like, passively appreciating it.
Yep.
The action part, that's key. It means this feeling, it should make us do something, create, make a difference somehow.
So not just feel that awe, you're saying let it inspire how you act, how you create.
Exactly. Remember that example he gives about seeing the Milky Way for the first time?
Yeah.
He describes it as this, like, life-changing thing, filled him with wonder, made him question his place in the universe. And that's what got him into astronomy, wanting to share that passion.
Makes you think how many of us have those moments, those amazement moments, but then they just fade. We don't really do anything with them.
It's easy to do, right? Especially these days. Like, we're constantly bombarded with stuff, info, distractions.
Mhm.
Hard to hold on to those moments of awe.
For sure.
But that's where I think Kindred Soul is challenging us, to be intentional. Purposely seek out those experiences that inspire us, and then let that feeling guide our actions.
Don't just be amazed, let it move you. I like that. It makes me think about what we were talking about earlier, finding that balance between digital life, physical reality, maybe that's part of it, amazement and action, bridging that gap.
Oh, I think you're so right. It's about realizing that the digital world, it has its wonders, but it can make us miss the awe-inspiring stuff right in front of
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
When we're present, truly experiencing the world, that's when we're open to those experiences that light us up.
Yeah.
The stuff that makes us want to make a difference.
So how do we do it? Cultivate this amazement in action. He gives us some ideas, but I'd love to hear your perspective.
Well, I think a big part of it is just being more mindful of this present moment, truly experiencing what's around us. Put the phone down for a sec, look up from the screen, and actually take it in. The natural world, art, those little moments of human connection.
Savoring those moments, letting them sink in, instead of rushing through life on autopilot.
Exactly. And when something does spark that awe, that wonder, don't let it go. Don't just brush it off. Ask yourself, why does this speak to me? What is it about this that moves me so much? And then the real kicker, how can I turn this feeling into something good, something creative?
So it's about letting that awe guide our decisions, how we live our lives, basically.
Yeah. And in a world that feels so divided right now, so uncertain, I think that's a really powerful idea. Amazement in action. It gives us a way to reconnect with each other, with our shared humanity, find that hope, that inspiration.
It's a call to action, wouldn't you say, for all of us?
I think so. A call I am definitely ready to answer. How about you?
Me too, 100%. Now, I want to get back to something Kindred Soul said near the end there with Clouded Sky. Just a small thing, but it stuck with me. He was talking about how he had to wrap up because he had a family reunion to get to.
Oh, yeah.
It kind of sparked a whole new line of thought for him, how being present online affects our real-life relationships.
It did. And it makes you think we're here talking about grounding ourselves, being in the moment, but we've got to figure out this digital world too, right? It can feel like it's working against all that.
Right, so it's a balancing act.
Totally. And I think that's what Kindred Soul's figuring out too, like all of us. But maybe that's it, right? Maybe the journey itself, trying to figure this all out, that's just as important as the answers.
Maybe it's about accepting the messiness, the fact that it's always changing, how we connect with each other and the world.
And maybe, just maybe, if we come at it with curiosity,
Mm-hmm.
a little humility, and yeah, even that amazement, we can find our way together.
I love that. And speaking of journeys, I think we've covered a lot in this deep dive already, but before we wrap things up completely, there's this one more thing I want to touch on. It kind of ties everything we've been discussing together beautifully. Kindred Soul ends by saying, he's got to go get ready for a family reunion.
Such a simple thing.
But it really says a lot, I think. Here he is having this deep philosophical conversation with an AI, and then bam, back to reality, family calls.
It's true, though. Even in our digital world, we can get caught up in these big concepts. The universe, consciousness. But the most meaningful stuff, often it's those simple face-to-face moments, you know?
Like he was saying about shared narratives, family gatherings, those little stories, those shared moments and memories. That's the good stuff. That's what connects us.
It's the pearly necklace.
Yeah.
Each life is precious.
Yeah.
But it's that thread, that's what makes it all come together. The love, the shared moments.
And I think that's a huge takeaway from this whole thing. As much as we're surrounded by the digital, we can't forget what it means to be human. Empathy, connection. Those things still matter.
Especially now.
It's almost too easy to forget sometimes, you know? Life gets busy, we're always plugged in.
Right.
But those human connections are so important.
It's about finding that balance. The digital, the physical, the big picture stuff, and what's right in front of us. It's all part of living a good life, a meaningful one.
Embracing both sides, yeah. The simple joys, but also the wonders of this digital age.
Maybe it's like Kindred Soul says, it's somewhere in between those two things.
Yeah.
Where the crickets chirp and the stars are out. That's where we figure out what it really means to be human.
What a way to wrap up this deep dive. I don't know about you, but I'm feeling inspired. Think I'm going to log off for a bit, reconnect with some folks, maybe even do a little stargazing later.
That sounds perfect.
Until next time, everyone, keep those conversations going, keep searching, and never lose that sense of wonder.
Well said.
And remember, even when the crickets quiet down, we're all still connected. Until next time. We've given you the starting point, the first clue in this intriguing mystery. Now it's your turn to take the reins. Head over to kindredsoulsearch.com and see what you uncover. What could Kindred Soul Search mean to you? Maybe jot down your thoughts, your impressions. Consider this deep dive your launch pad, the first step on a journey of discovery.